Hello, I'm Amy Oxford here at the Oxford Rug Hooking School in Cornwall, Vermont, and I would like to welcome you to my classroom. Today I want to talk to you about our Oxford punch needle sizes. Our punches come in 8 different sizes, and they come with 2 different size metal needles. They come in regular and fine. The regular is for thicker yarns, like this 3-ply rug yarn, or you can use bulky yarns. You can also use multiple strands in the needle together of finer yarns. It works beautifully with strips of fabric. This is a 1/4-inch strip of fabric, an 8-cut strip. The fine point is designed to work with thinner yarns, like this worsted weight yarn, and you can also use it with cut strips of fabric. This is a very thin strip, a 3-cut strip. Nothing wider than that would really go through it if you're using fabric. This is our complete set of 8 Oxford punch needles. Every punch has a number, and the numbering system's a little confusing, but just remember, the lower the number, the taller the loop. This is 8 regular and fine, 9 regular and fine, 10 regular and fine, and 13 and 14. If you can't find the number on your punch, they're stamped right there on the end. I've made a sampler to show you what the different needles create. This is the 8 regular and fine, which is a 1/2-inch tall loop. The 9 regular and fine makes a 3/8 inch tall loop. The 10 regular and fine makes a 1/4-inch loop. And then we have these 2 which are much smaller, the 13 and 14 fine. The 13 makes a 3/16 of an inch tall loop, and the 14 makes an 1/8 of an inch tall loop. It's hard to tell which is fine yarn and which is thick yarn because the loops kind of get compressed. But if I turn it over, you'll be able to see the yarns better. There's the thick yarn and the thin yarn for the number 8, thick and thin for 9, thick and thin for 10, and then these 2 little sizes, the 13 and the 14, are only available for fine yarns. This is a more elaborate sampler. The circles around the outside are done with the 8 different Oxford punch needle sizes, and the circle in the middle is actually done with the Craftsman's punch needle, which I'll show you in a minute. These lines are strips of a 1/4-inch wide fabric. Just for fun, I wanted to try to see if I could get a beveled edge, so I started with my lowest loop punch needle and worked up to the tallest. And that's what the back of it looks like. So you can see I've got thin yarn and thick yarn in the same piece. This was a lot of fun to make. It's great to make a sample just to see what things do in the different punch needles. This is a pattern I designed called the Oxford Cottage. I wanted something that would use all 8 of my punch needle sizes. The house is done with the 13 and 14, the much shorter loops, because you can get more detail with shorter loops and finer yarn. And the tree is done with the 8, 9, and 10 regular, so it's actually sculpted, and I've clipped the loops to give a different effect. Here, this is lower with the 14 up against a 10, so it actually recedes. I also tried to do a beveled border, so that's all 8 sizes of Oxford punch needles. The question I get asked the most is, what size Oxford punch needle should I get? The number 10 regular is our most popular size. It's very versatile. It's great for rugs, wall hangings, pillows, Christmas stockings, tabletop decorations. You can make just about everything with the number 10 regular. I personally prefer a number 9 regular for rugs because it makes just a little bit thicker of a loop. It makes a little cushier of a rug, so that's what I use. If you want to make more delicate things with more fine detail, wall hangings, anything where you want to get smaller details in, I really like the 14 fine. I've used it to make these little bags and this small piece with the lion. So our needle sizes may seem confusing and arbitrary, but there's a history of where those numbers came from, and I think if I explain it, it will make more sense. The tool that I learned to punch with in 1982 is the Craftsman's punch needle. It's a wonderful tool. It's got 10 different settings, so you can get 10 different loop heights, and it was invented by a gentleman named Wilmer Roberts in 1932. It came first called the Columbia Deluxe needle, and then it changed hands and later was the Columbia Minerva Deluxe rug needle, then just the Minerva Deluxe rug needle, and finally the Craftsman's rug needle. It's known as the Craftsman's punch needle today and is available from the George Wells Ruggery. The tool is really nifty how it works. You can lock it in place with this little lock here, and if you twist it from down here, you can pull on the needle to make it longer or shorter, and the longer the needle, the longer your loop will be. And this actually comes all the way out, and you can replace it with these other needles. There are 4 different size needles for thick or thin yarn. Right now you can only get the Craftsman's punch needle with the 1 needle size, but you can still find the older versions on eBay and antique stores and things like that. I made a sampler here to show the 10 different needle heights, and the shortest loop is the number 10, which is a 1/4 inch, and it goes all the way down to number 1, which is the tallest, and that's a 3/4 inch tall loop. So when I invented my own needle, I really find that most people want a shorter pile, so I decided just to have an 8, 9, and 10. So that's where my 8, 9, and 10 come from, and it was Mr. Roberts who came up with the system of the lower the number, the taller the loop. So that explains where the Oxford sizes 8, 9, and 10 come from, but not the sizes 13 and 14. The 13 and 14 came about because I was trying to make a dollhouse rug for my daughter, and I set the Craftsman's needle at a size 10, which is the shortest loop, and the loops were just much too tall for the rug. The poor little dolls were up to their knees. So what I did is I took a hacksaw and I carved in another notch up here at what would be the equivalent of a size 14, and I locked it in place with a whole bunch of super glue. So I loved my sawed off 14, and my students fell in love with it too, and I wound up adapting needles for them, and over time I decided to come out with my own because it did seem like a popular tool, and I called mine the Mini. And I just adore the Mini because you can get so much finer detail like in this house, or you can do shading, which is so much fun to do. I taught a class on making a small sign, and this was the sign I made, but my friend Louise Culp took the class, and she said, "I'm making the body of my sign with the Mini. Could you please make me a new punch needle that makes the loop a little bit taller so my letters will show up more?" And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." So we made her the equivalent of a 13, and it was hard to remember the numbers, which one's taller, the 13, the 14. So we came up with a silly way to remember it, which is that the taller loop is, we called it the Mini with heels, because it's a taller loop, it's wearing heels, as in high heels. Corny, but that's how we remember it. So that's why we call them the Mini and the Mini with heels. I've used a taller loop here to get the letters to stand out. You can get the same effect with other size punch needles too. If you're making a rug, for example, with a number 10 regular and you want your lettering to stand up, use a number 9 regular, and you will just have a little bit taller loop and you'll be able to read those letters much more clearly. I'm often asked why our Oxford punch needles have screw eyes. The fine point punch needles do have a screw eye in them, and it's because a finer yarn can tend to slip out of the channel. Our regular point Oxford punch needles for heavier yarn do not have them, because if you're using a nice heavy bulky yarn, the yarn should stay right in that channel for you. Thanks so much for watching. Wait, are you watching or are you napping? I can't tell. Oh, there you are. Well, I just hope you enjoyed the video, and my next one is going to be on the different yarns that work in the Oxford punch needle. So if you've enjoyed this one, I hope you'll subscribe. Thank you.